Hello everyone, my name is Bhavya and today I thought of preparing a presentation on the very first topic of biology, and that's the living world. So let us start. Now this chapter has always been very wonderful, right? I love this chapter because it talks about all the things that are present in this earth, right? Uh, from the bacteria to to human beings and to wide range of variety of organisms have been discussed, right? What does it actually means to be considered as a living organism? What is the difference between living and non-living? How the classification systems were made? Why there was a need for the classification? What are the different taxonomical hierarchical system? Then different structures. Of course, we also studied about the taxonomical aids, right? So we have been discussing a number of things in this chapter, and I personally like this chapter a lot. So I thought of just preparing a presentation, which is one of my favorite activities to be done. So I did that in order to help all of us to understand the concepts more clearly. And I hope that this would help you to some extent. So, of course, how wonderful is this living world, right? The wide range of living types is just amazing. The beauty of the galloping horse, of the migratory birds, the value of the flowers or the attacking shark evokes a deep sense of wonder. Yes, of course, everything that's there in the environment, be it a plant, be it a human body, be it a tree, be it my computer, anything just makes a deep sense of wonder in our mind. We just tend to, think that how is this possible? How a particular thing generates from small to then big and then more big. Have you ever observed the things carefully? If you would have observed it carefully, then of course this question might have arisen in your mind that, is there any difference between living and non-living? And what makes the difference? So we, in this chapter, are going to answer all the questions that I have talked about right now. Okay, so let us move. What makes one living? Okay, so the very first thing which I have mentioned is what makes one living. Do you think that a man walking can be considered as living? Of course, we all can walk, right? So, do we say that yes, a man is walking, that yes, okay. That actually indicates that the person is living. Do you think a cow sleeping can be considered as living? Okay, if you see a cow who is sleeping, that does that actually indicates that, of course, that particular thing is living? Okay. Do you think a cat chasing a rat makes it living? Of course, you might have seen Tom and Jerry, into which the cat is, Tom is always and always after the Jerry, right? So does that actually makes it living, or is there anything else which makes all of these three members to be considered as living? So in this chapter, we'll come to know what makes one living. What are the different characteristics? What are the different points to be mentioned to actually say that yes, this particular organism can be considered as living? There should be a definite structure, a definition. There should be a proper thing for defining something, right? Of course, you know what is the mechanism of working of a fan, right? You just switch on, and then what happens? The fan moves on, right? But when this question gets, in your, when this comes as a question in your examination, then you have to write the proper mechanism, right? Therefore, of course, we know that the person is walking, then it actually indicates that the person is living. Otherwise, if he would have been dead, then of course he would not be walking, right? But, we need to classify organisms as living and non-living with the help of certain characteristics which I am going to mention, okay? So let us find out to all of the questions which I said, that how we can say that the particular organism is living. What is living? First of all, let's discuss some points, okay? Like growth and development, definite shape and size, organization, metabolism. Then we have reproduction, Sixth is homeostasis. Seventh is consciousness. Eighth is adaptation. Ninth is evolution. And 10th is repair and regeneration. Now, I've also written over here that do you think that the points mentioned here can be considered as a defining characteristic of living organism? Like, see, of course, you might have seen, of course, everybody has seen, of course, you have done as well, that you are walking, right? Or you must have seen people reproducing. You must have seen a definite shape and structure. You must have seen we have a proper organization. You must have seen that from the childhood till the age, your height has grown for sure, right? So, of course, it indicates the growth and development. Of course, you must have seen that when you get hurt, your dead cells gets repaired and then it regenerates into a new cell, right? Of course, these things happen. But do you think that any one of them should be considered as a defining characteristics of living organism? Don't you think that reproduction will be there? I mean, reproduction should be considered as a defining characteristic. Should adaptation be considered as a defining characteristic? Should definite shape and size should be considered as a defining characteristic? We are going to perform different thinking, sessions into which we'll be saying that whether this any of this should be considered as the only characteristic which is exclusively found in living organism. Okay, so the very first thing which I have mentioned is, okay, first of all, I just have to mention that what is life, and before that and after that we'll be talking about different types of things which should be considered as a defining characteristic of living organism, right? So what is life? Life is a unique, complex organization of molecules that expresses itself through chemical reactions which lead to growth, development, responsiveness, adaptation, and reproduction. Okay? So, of course, life, we all are aware that living organisms are made up of cells, right? Of course, they are made up of cells. And cells are the smallest structural and functional unit of life, right? Yes, of course, right. These, very small particles, the honeycomb-like structures, they actually, perform a number of chemical reactions into them. And this actually indicates our living characteristic. Because we have a definite organization. And these accumulate and form a number of reactions into our body and forms a complex organization of all the molecules which are present into them, and it's just a unique thing, and that is what is referred to as life. This actually leads to growth, development, responsiveness, adaptation, and reproduction, which is only and only seen in what? Living organisms. But before that, we are going to talk about that. Let's think, okay? Let's think whether growth should be considered as a defining characteristic of all the living organism. Okay? So ask your brain to work that should this phenomena be considered as the only defining characteristic of living organism? Okay. But before answering that, let us define growth. Of course, we have a visual thinking, right? Whenever you read a sentence, it's pretty common that this comes into your mind, right? Of course, when you study about mountains, what comes into your mind? Of course, mountains. When you study about, plants, what comes into your mind? Your surrounding, your greenery environment, right? So this is a human tendency. So, of course, when you study about growth, what comes into my mind is just this, the height which I have, right? So it is a progressive increase in size, the weight of an organism due to increase in dry weight, mass, or number. It is also permanent and irreversible change. Have you ever seen a tall person, and he is decreasing day by day? I mean, his height is decreasing day by day? Of course not, right? You must have seen a person who is very short, and after a time or so, he just becomes tall, right? So, of course, it's irreversible and it's permanent also, okay? We can't see that a person who is tall can, directly become short or dwarf.